Hi there everyone, I'm Andy Malone and welcome to this session, A Brave New World, Microsoft 365 Compliance Explained. My name is Andy Malone, I'm a Microsoft MVP as well as a Microsoft Certified Trainer. I've been an MVP for 15 years and a trainer for 24 years, long time. And of course I've spoken at Spiceworld before in London, so it's great that you're all here at this event and I hope that you're all staying safe. I'm also an author and I also run my own YouTube channel, which you can find the link below, so if you want to learn more about me, feel free to click away. Now, this session, I thought we would take a look at compliance and the importance of compliance. So we're going to talk about the concept of the shared responsibility model. And from then on, it's a demo fest. So I thought, we're going to spend 40 minutes, 40 minutes, rather than, jibber jabber. I thought I would go through lots and lots of demos and show you things. So we're going to talk about the new compliance manager in Microsoft 365. Will include things like compliance score, performing a compliance assessment, really important, data classifications. You might, for example, be doing a GDPR data request. So a data subject, we're all data subjects. It's important. Information protection is critical, especially with compliance, as is things like retention policies. So we look at things like records management and the very cool insider risk management. So I thought that will just whet your appetite. Now, talking about compliance, life in the cloud is very different to on-premises. So looking on the left-hand side here, if you've got organizations that are just still purely on premises, of course you are responsible for everything. You are responsible for all the security, all the compliance, the backups, the infrastructure, and it's expensive. But as you move through the different cloud models, you can see that the responsibilities very much shift away from yourself to the cloud provider, because this is ultimately what you're paying for, really, at the end of the day, right? So ultimately, at the end of the day, software as a service, pretty much everything is in the cloud. However, it's a shared responsibility model. So Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they will do their bit, but you also have to do your bit as well. All right. Now, these products are getting, bigger and bigger and more complex. So again, data retention is absolutely critical, as is data loss prevention as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through some demos and we're going to talk about some of those very cool security features. And I'm going to come back at the end and round things up. So enjoy. So my demo begins here in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. And for compliance, we want to go into Show All and scroll down and come into the new Compliance Center, which is part of Microsoft 365. If you've not logged in, then go ahead and put in your credentials and you're in. Now, the Compliance Center has recently been completely rewritten. So in this session, we're going to go through what I think are all the most kind of important areas to give you a real kind of deep dive into the various elements. So first up here, we can see that we've got the home page here. And what this brings us is this new card-based interface. So you can see here that we have, just like the other elements in Microsoft 365, you've got the capabilities to add and remove cards, and you pretty much have got them all here. So first up, we get compliance score, and this is again connected to Compliance Manager there that you can jump into. We also have a new solutions catalog in Microsoft 365, which contains, strangely enough, Microsoft 365 solutions, as well as Azure Active Directory. I can only assume that in the future, it will be a little bit like Microsoft Azure, and it will give that kind of third-party product access in the future. You can also go into Cloud App Compliance. So if you've got an E5 subscription and Microsoft 365, of course, you'll get access to Cloud App Security as well. Other things that we've got at a glance, you can see which users are sharing files right now. You can also see how many items are actually using retention tags and retention labels, which again is a really important aspect of compliance management. And also it gives you a quick overview of any high-risk apps that you're using. Third-party policies, you've got shared files, and again, Discover Shadow IT, which of course is connected to Cloud App Security. So what else have we got here in the Compliance Center? So looking at this in a little bit more detail, if I go into, oh, by the way, just before I leave, you can move these cards around and kind of rearrange them if you want to. And again, you can rename any of these tabs. So first up then, we're going to take a look in Compliance Manager itself. I absolutely love Compliance Manager. So first up, you can see that we have, first of all, it's really nice just to kind of take this helicopter view and kind of stand up and look at this and go, okay, where are we in terms of compliance? And first up, you get this compliance score. Now you'll notice that the compliance score is made up of a number of something, and you think, well, okay, how did I get to get that number? Well, of course, Microsoft is a cloud service provider, and they have a responsibility to keep your stuff secure. So in compliance, of course, storing your data in a Microsoft data center, there's a whole multiple layers of security and compliance built on top of that. And of course, if they don't keep your data secure, then they will be liable as well. So first up then, we can look at the compliance score, and it tells me how my points are achieved. So the way that your points are achieved, typically what Microsoft do is they compare your score with kind of your peers, your industry peers. So organizations, companies like yourself. Now, in order to improve your score, you've got a number of improvement actions here. And your improvement actions can be found up here on this tab. So these are things that you can really do to kind of improve your score and also improve your compliance standing, if you will. So for example, there's various things that you could do. So for example, use information rights management to protect email and messaging. A good idea. So we click onto this and let's have a look at what it says. So you get a nice kind of overview of what you need to do. And you can see you can either do this manually or you can do it automatically. How do you implement it, or how do you want to implement it? So it gives you a really detailed set of instructions, again with some links to docs.microsoft.com. You can also make some implementation notes there as well. And also when you're going to implement it, for example, a date, and you can say, yes, we've already done this. We're planning to do this. So it gives you a real kind of sense of purpose in terms of getting that compliance. Now, once it's up and running, there are a number of tests that you can do. So in this case, mine's not set up yet. It's not implemented, so I can't test it. But you can obviously go ahead and do that. Now, does this conform to any industry regulations or standards? If you're going through any regulations like ISO 27001 or GDPR, then this is where you would find that. Alongside any documents. So again, maybe you're going through an assessment at the moment. This is where you can store those assessment documents. So Compliant Manager is really nice for that. Now, as I mentioned, Microsoft also have various solutions. So in the solutions area here, these are pretty much all the various Compliance Manager tools. So it shows you the things that you can do, again, in order to improve your actions. Now, I assume that in time, solutions will probably include third-party solutions. All right. I love this, by the way. This rocks. So we have here a whole host of various assessment templates. Now, before I get into that, you'll notice that we've got the Compliance Manager settings here. So if you click onto this, this is where you can, are you going to do a automated testing? Or are you planning to do maybe a manual type of testing? So you've got the option here. Do you want to switch this on for all improvement actions, specific improvement actions, and so on? So again, you might like that. Also, you get a complete list of all your users. And again, I can click on the drop down arrow and I can have a look at a specific report based on a compliance report based on a particular user. And I can also reassign the improvement actions to various other users as well, if I want to. Okay, so that is just some of the settings. So going back to the settings here, the other thing that you've got, that was the Compliance Manager settings. You've also got other things here as well. So these are your overall tenant settings. So for things like device onboarding within your organization, co-authoring files with sensitivity labels, are you going to allow that? And you've also got things like Compliance Center redirection. So redirect the Compliance Center perhaps to the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So as I've mentioned, compliance templates, first of all, are a complete set of industry templates. So if you're going for things like GDPR, the European Data Directive, or if you're going for ISO 27001 or something like that, then everything that you need to do is going to be here. All right. So I can say, yeah, I'm going to go for this industry standard certification. Now, if you please note, depending on your subscription to Microsoft 365, you will also have access to premium, what they call premium templates. And again, there's many more depending on the industry that you're in that you'll be able to get access to. So, for example, this is the GDPR document here. So I can go through, this is fantastic, by the way. So if you're doing a GDPR assessment, you can see these are the controller and the processor. Well, first of all, the processor is Microsoft Azure, okay? And you are the data controller. So that means potentially that you are responsible if there is any kind of data breach. Again, linking in with our previous topic here, you've got those improvement actions that you can improve upon. The other things that you can also do, as you can also see Microsoft actions as well. So the cloud, do remember in terms of compliance that the cloud is a shared responsibility. All right. So those are the templates. So I can create an assessment based on this template. So let me go back to one that, here's one I made earlier. So you can see here that I've created a data protection baseline from a template. When you add an assessment, it will say which assessment template. So is it ISO 27001 or whatever it is you're going for? So I'm going to go into the data assessment here, and you can see that my assessment is currently running. It's 55% complete, and you can see that I've got 127 points, and Microsoft's doing pretty well here, as you can see. It also makes some recommendations. So again, it uses AI and machine learning to automate and look through everything. It tells you what you've completed and what you still need to do. So when you go in front of that assessor, ISO 27001, then you can hand them this document and go, hey, look, we're ready, we're good to go. So this is our progress. These are the controls that we put in place. So again, we've still got a little bit of work to do in certain areas. Again, you've got that list of improvement actions. You've got a list of Microsoft actions, which of course are always 100%. But there we go. And in essence, that's how the template works. So you can change the name, you can delete the assessment, but it is a fantastic set of tools. So ladies and gentlemen, that is Compliance Manager. So moving on, the next thing then is data classification. Data classification is, I would think, really, really useful. Now, we've had data loss prevention policies for a long time, and we have those, but now for the first time in Compliance Manager, we have this helicopter view of everything. All right, so at a glance, we can see our sensitive data. We can see where the locations of our data is. We can see what labeling policies are done here. So I would say that there's a little bit of confusion about this. Think about this as your data classification settings. All right, that's the easiest way to describe it. You can go into each of the different tools individually here. Now, you can see that we've got a couple of options here. Trainable classifiers. What does that mean? That means it's using AI and machine learning to learn your environment. And you can create your own trainable classifier. Now, the other week, I was actually approached by a university in Norway, and they said to me, you know, we've got a problem with students sending inappropriate content. Well, now you can add in things like profanity, offensive language, inappropriate conduct, inappropriate images, harassment, different classifiers, threats, and it's the intelligence built in. It will look for these things. All right. In addition, and we've had this in Azure and 365 for a long time, this is sensitive information types. So this might mean things like PII, personally identifiable information, and so on. So you can see here, this is a complete list of all the information types throughout the world. So you can see here, for example, we've got an EU passport number, and you can use this along with things like data loss prevention policies, information protection, to protect sensitive data. So the nice thing about this tool is that you can now go in and you can create your own sensitive data type, which absolutely rocks. Now, I mentioned that this was it was a helicopter approach type tool. So you can go into the exact data matches and you can create your own schema. What this means is you're looking to create a unique sensitive information type. So does it have a particular pattern, like a credit card number? You know, the numbers and the letter type format, because this is what you can then search for. You've also got Content Explorer, And this is awesome. It will just do a quick search across all of your entire organization, and it will say, hey, look, there are 45 occurrences in which a EU debit card number comes up, and it shows you each of those occurrences and where they're stored. That rocks. And perhaps you want to export that information, not the sensitive information, of course, but just the metadata here. You can also look at the Activity Explorer, and you can get this in a nice graphical format. So you can choose how you want to view it. So in this case, I don't have very much in there. Okay. And you can see here we also have a log as well. So it shows you if there are any hits against any data loss prevention policies. So ladies and gentlemen, that is data classification. Moving down, I love this. Now, in the past, it was very much just all about Microsoft. But as you can see here, we now have hundreds of different options to connect to third-party data solutions. Because, of course, compliance doesn't stop with your solution. So you can basically connect to third-party data sources there. Okay, and you would then, so if you had an Amazon account, it would prompt you for that information. Then we've got alerts. So again, any alerts that we've set up, so things like information protection alerts, compliance alerts, they can come up here. So if there's been an e-discovery or something like that. You've got a number of reporting tools here. And again, this is great because it's at a glance and you can see instantly what is going on within your organization. So again, not very much happening here, but I'm sure you get the idea. Now, in the past, and strangely enough, they're still here, you have got various protection policies here. So you've got the various tools, cloud app security, you've got various alert policies. This is typically what we're looking for. So data loss prevention and retention policies. So I like to call data loss prevention data leakage prevention. So it uses labeling and classification to prevent data from leaking outside your organization. Retention policies for compliance, for example, let's say you have US tax records or Norwegian tax records, you may have to keep them for 7 years. So you can retain data either manually or automatically. Now, just a bit of advice, I wouldn't go off looking through this menu. Some of these tools are a little bit old and they've actually been superseded, and I'll show you those in a moment. So other important areas, if I scroll down here, in terms of our little demo fest now, what I want to show you is the data subject request. So a data subject request, it's getting a new location, by the way. A data subject request, what is a data subject? Who is a data subject? It's you and me. Okay, we're all data subjects. So we have the right to know what is being said about us, what information is being stored. So as part of GDPR, you have the rights to go in, and you can see I've gone ahead, I've created one here for John Luke. So I can add a user in here or a group, and I can then go and say, okay, I want to make a request of some data. So if I go in and create a case, I'm going to call this Kirk's case. Okay. And Captain Kirk would like a copy of his data subject, his data. So any data that he's got in our organization, he would like a copy of that. Okay. So I'll click on save. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm creating a case. And now what I can do is I can now go ahead and it will take me into Microsoft 365 search. And you can see it's looking for email messages, documents, any kind of instant messaging, and off it will go. And once it's finished, and this could go on for some time, what you can then do, you can save the search and you can then export that content out. So that is a really, really useful feature. Now, eDiscovery does something similar. The main difference here is this is particularly useful for, let's say you suspect somebody is up to no good. Well, the difference here is you can place their user account on legal hold. So that prevents the user from deleting any content. Now, Andy, does that mean that the user, or does that mean rather that the user can delete the content? No, the user can carry on working just fine, but their mailbox is never emptied. That's really what it means here. Just moving quickly along, just to some of my favorite features, certainly when it comes to new features, we've had information protection for a long time. This is a really cool feature. This is called insider risk management. So how does this work? Well, this is an area I think that's been kind of overlooked a lot in recent years. You know, we've always worried about, hackers and bad guys coming into our organization. But what about if there's bad guys already in our organization? And again, this happens. You have perhaps disgruntled employees. It does happen. So in this case, we go through to our overview. And in terms of insider risks, one of the first places that you go is policies. Okay, so the first place that we go is into policies. And I'm going to create, just wait for this to come in a second. I'm going to create a new policy. So you can choose from a whole host of templates. Now, remember at the beginning when I told you about that gentleman at the University of Oslo, and he said that they had a problem with students sending and receiving inappropriate images. Well, at the time, and this was a while ago, I thought, I don't know if there's a solution. This would totally solve that problem. Okay, so here is my policy templates. Now, in essence, you've got three choices. You've got data theft, data leaks, and security policy violations, and this is currently in preview. So what are some of the things that we're thinking about here? Well, you can, again, this is great because you can link in with likes of HR, by the way, and this is perfect for that. Okay, so let's say, for example, a user is leaving the company. So you can do you want to do a data theft or a potential data theft? Now, we're not accusing anybody of stealing data. This is just a proactive tool. I think people need to understand that. Data leaks, again, you might want to monitor data, possibly you suspect a disgruntled employee, or just you want to protect against general data leaks and so on. So I'm going to say the data theft option, and let's say we've got a member of staff who's leaving. And let's say the member of staff, let's say this is my Sterling leavers policy. Okay, so I've got some staff in Sterling and they're going to leave. So am I looking for all users and groups or just specific users and groups? So in this example, I'm going to add a user. And unfortunately, Captain Picard has decided to leave the company. All right, so I'm going to select Captain Picard and I'm going to click next. And do you want to specify specific SharePoint sites, sensitivity labels, or sensitive information, or you don't want to specify any priority? And you can do that later on. All right, so any kind of sites that he might have access to, let's say. So I can go ahead and you can assign SharePoint website. So let's say, for example, he had access to the Oslo Tech and Oslo HQ websites. So we can add that in. Clicking on next, does he have access to either edit or access any sensitive information types? So if there was any information types, you could select that and he could monitor that. So for example, credit card information or something like that. For the purpose of this demo, I'm going to say no thank you. And I'm going to click next on that. Okay, now here, choose a triggering event. So you can choose a triggering event here. And you can also set up what we call policy indicators. Now, a triggering event might be, for example, if the user account has deleted the user from Azure AD, you need to have, if you're using a HR connector, so you can see I'm not using these at the moment, but if you had, let's say, a HR package, Microsoft Dynamics, for example, you could link into that. Policy indicators, again, we have a number of different policy indicators. These can all be customized. So, for example, requesting access to files that they shouldn't have access to, doing mass deletions of files, copying files. If you're using devices in Intune, I'm not using them because this is the reason why these are grayed out. But, for example, creating hidden files, copying files. This is unusual behavior. So what this is doing is it's looking for anomalous behavior. Okay. So in this case, I'm just going to use the default thresholds in terms of, how many events, how many times they break the rules. So I'm just going to click on next. And I'm not using a trigger such as the HR option at the moment. So I'm just going to go ahead and accept that. So there we have it. The policy is now created. And if I click OK on that, typically this is the way it works. So if a policy hits, if there's a hit against a policy, then what will happen is it will generate an alert. An alert will happen, and then from the alert, it will open a case against a particular user. And that case you can then use in potential evidence against them. Other things here, it will also list the users that you're currently monitoring here as well. And you can create your own what we call notice templates. So that's just a way of informing users what's going on. There's been a hit. Again, you may not have to do that for legal reasons. So insider risk management, ladies and gentlemen, an absolutely fantastic feature. Now, just moving on a little bit, just a couple of quick things just to show you. Records management. So records management in compliance, I love. So in previous versions of SharePoint and Exchange, you might be familiar with placing content on hold, or you maybe need to retain content for a certain amount of time. If you were using SharePoint, you had to do this in SharePoint document libraries, and it was very, very cumbersome. So now what we have is we have this records management tool. And in here, you can create what we refer to as a file plan. And the file plan can contain retention policies. So I can go ahead here and I can say, hey, I want to create a, let's say, a UK retention policy. Okay. Or you can even create a label. So I could say, this is my UK tax. I'm going to say 1 year retain. Okay. So I create the label. You need to just copy the content across. And again, it doesn't matter whether you're using a PC or a Mac as I'm using here. It's all the same. Click on next. And it then says, okay, this is useful. Do you want to put a reference ID in here? Does it relate to a business unit? Okay, well, I did say tax, didn't I? So, for example, this could be a finance. What's the reason why you need to monitor this? Well, finance, okay. Is it a particular category within finance? Well, it's for compliance reasons. And you can have a subcategory as well. And in terms of the authority, which authority is this for? So it might be regulatory. So I choose regulatory, and then you can see I can put in, the name of the organization or whatever it is here. Okay. So I'm going to click on next. And again, you can see that we now have retention settings. So this is kind of the modern way to do retention labels. So you can say, okay, I can customize this if I want to. So I could go ahead and I could say, I'm going to do 1 year. Let's just say I've got to keep everything for a year. Now, do you keep that from when it was created, when it was last modified, when it was labeled, an employee activity such as hiring and firing, or the end of a product lifetime? So I'm going to say when it was created. And I'm going to say, the other thing that you can do, retain the item even if the users delete it. Now, what you're essentially doing here is this is litigation hold. So you're placing the item on legal hold. In other words, it won't be deleted. Okay. The other thing that you can do is for SharePoint, you can mark the item as a record. And what you're essentially doing here is the user won't be able to edit it. It'll be kept, but it won't be editable. All right. You can't change the content. So at the end of that 1 year, we're going to delete the item automatically, or do you want to discuss a review? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select that, and I'm going to go ahead and create the label. Now, once you've created a label, you've got the choice. If you choose to publish the label now, it will create a new policy. You can auto apply the label, and you can say against specific type of content, or you can do nothing. If you do nothing, what you can then do is you can then go into a current label policy. Let's say, for example, Oslo Finance here. And if I, let's say, edit this policy, you can now go in and I can add in additional labels. Okay, so you can see that here is my tax 1 year label that I've just created. All right, so I can go in here and I can add that in here, and I can add some others as well if I want to, and click on add, and I can now publish that to this policy. And I'm just going to include all locations. So it doesn't just focus on SharePoint or Exchange, it focuses on all the locations. You can see I've already named the policy. I now just click on go ahead and publish it. So there we go. That, ladies and gentlemen, is records management. So there you have it, just a few of the cool features in Compliance Manager, which is part of Microsoft 365. So there you have it, my Microsoft 365 Demo Fest. I really hope that you found that interesting and useful. Now, of course, we only just scratched the surface here. There's only so much you can do in 40 minutes, of course, but I really hope that it's given you insight into the capabilities and the importance that compliance plays in modern security and compliance environments. So we talked about the shared responsibility model, and from then on, it was all about that demo fest. We talked about Compliance Manager. We talked about Compliance Score, performing a compliance assessment, that important data classification, performing a GDPR data subject request, of course, very kind of topical at the moment. and one of my favorites, records management and insider risk management. I love that feature. Hey, look, I really appreciate you taking the time and joining me here at Spiceworld 2021. And hopefully next time, once all this craziness is out the way, we'll get to spend some time together and I'll see you live out there. But in the meantime, I'm Andy Malone, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. You stay safe, and I'll see you soon. All the best. Cheers. Thanks for dropping by. Hope you enjoyed the video. Go ahead and click on the subscribe button and ring that bell, and you won't miss a thing. See you next time.